Our next speaker is Saja Raoof, the owner of Saja Raoof Law. Saja is is a San Francisco-based business immigration attorney. She's the daughter of an alien of extraordinary ability, which is a visa classification which recognized her dad's distinguished career in medical education. Her family background is part of the reason that she chose to devote her career to serving talented foreign nationals interested in pursuing the American dream through employment-based visas, much like my parents. Wallflower Power: How Introverts Can Succeed at Networking is the name of her talk. She's going to share tips on how introverts can not only survive, but thrive at networking. The presentation is going to go over how introverts can leverage their strengths, build meaningful relationships, and grow their networks. Without further ado, I give you Saja Raoof.
Thank you, LA. Provisors is a great organization, especially if you are an extrovert. I met LA in late 2017, and he strongly encouraged me to join Provisors, which I hadn't heard of, and I had never belonged to a networking organization before. So I did, and I overheard that statement early on in my Provisors journey in 2018. And I told myself, if this is a great organization for extroverts, that means I'm going to fall flat on my face in this organization. I'm not just an introvert by nature, and I didn't have any exposure to networking before joining Provisors, but I grew up in a part of the world that encouraged girls and women to be unseen and unheard as a matter of virtue. When I joined Provisors, I did not say a word my first year in Provisors. My voice was only heard when my group leader called on me to introduce myself, or when I owed somebody a testimonial for a referral, which is a public, roughly 1 minute long thank you to another Provisors member to acknowledge them for thinking of you, in my case, for an immigration referral. My voice was also heard that first year in Provisors during an icebreaker activity when somebody criticized Duran Duran, and even I couldn't stand for that. To make matters worse, a few months into my Provisors membership, I was diagnosed with adult onset type 1 diabetes. Until that point, I didn't know that you could get type 1 as an adult. I thought it was a typo in the lab results. But sure enough, I can do anything I put my mind to except produce insulin. And this means I have to wear 2 devices at all times, a constant glucose monitor and an insulin pump. So as if I wasn't self-conscious enough during networking meetings, now I had to contend with a chronic disease that is visible and draws attention. I didn't tell anyone outside my close friends and family for roughly the first 6 to 12 months of my diagnosis, because I thought it would impact my referability as an immigration lawyer. I thought people wouldn't want to refer to me because I could have a medical emergency in the middle of the case or even die on them. And I didn't want to be pigeonholed as the diabetic, somehow limited immigration lawyer. So I'm trying to keep this disease invisible, but at meetings, my alerts would go off from my devices. And unlike a cell phone, you cannot mute them. Their whole job is to keep you alive and alert you when your blood sugar is going too high or too low. So during Provisors meetings, when my alerts would go off, as if I wasn't already uncomfortable enough, I would shrink even further when people turned around and looked at me with my alerts going off. It took me 8 months to guest at other chapters in Provisors. The secret to success in Provisors is guesting, attending other phone groups. And I understood that, but I was too scared to guest for 8 months. And I could only do that after reading a book titled Networking for People Who Hate Networking twice. And I told myself, I'm not going to learn how to network from a book any more than I can learn swimming from a book. So I forced myself, I put myself out there. One of the most challenging things in my career was to force myself to guest my first year improvisers. I emailed my regional director in the Bay Area in early 2020 and told him about that book. And I said, if you have any members who are struggling with networking, I highly recommend this book. And his response was, I have my sights on you to be group leader of San Francisco 14, which I thought was a joke. I imagined he had 9 other candidates lined up. Sure enough, he formally invited me in December 2020, and I accepted. From there, I went on to stun myself and others. In my first year as group leader of San Francisco 14, I launched the largest new home group in Improvisers history. I led the 2 largest meetings in Improvisers history. Some people who were here were there that day, Star Wars Day of 2021. We had 160 members attend. My group, after that, became the largest home group in the country. I was recognized as Group Leader of the Year in Improvisers. And in my second year as Group Leader of San Francisco 14, I became SF14 became one of 2 home groups in the country to get to 50 members. All of this happened, and I am still an introvert. I still get butterflies in my stomach in the days and hours leading up to running a meeting or speaking publicly. I still rejoice when somebody cancels a coffee date, and I still strategize my alone time at social events. I'm going to share with you 4 tips on how I got from here to there while preserving my nature as an introvert. So I invite everyone in the chat to put just one word. What comes to mind when I say extrovert? What do you think of when you hear extrovert? Loud, annoying. Thank you, Jen. Get your energy from others, comfortable in new groups. Steve Fredson, outgoing salesperson. So according to the book, Networking for People Who Hate Networking, and its author is Dvorak, and I'll share that book. This is my networking Bible. I have recommended it and gifted it to more people than I can count. She defines those who hail from extra land as moving in packs. They freely share the majority of thoughts that enter their minds. They pursue new interests regularly, and they make friends at every turn in the road. Improvisers, I would define an extrovert as someone who's gregarious, jumps out of bed to attend meetings, and it seems like they were born to network. So what comes to mind, please enter in the chat when you hear introvert. Reserved, shy, quiet, leave me alone, depleted by interactions. Thinks back on recent interaction, that is a constant ongoing struggle, Roman. Needs downtime to recharge. Bruce says Saja. So the book defines those from Introville. They can be identified by a propensity to vanish alone, a proclivity to make decisions while staring out a window or taking a brisk uninterrupted walk. Their depth of concentration could cause them to miss an earthquake from its very epicenter. I would define an introvert in improvisers as someone who is differently connected. So they dread gatherings. When they network, if they feel out of place like a vegan at a steakhouse, and they mistakenly think that they are at a disadvantage. And I'd like to underscore mistakenly here. Introverts have special strengths that if they leverage in networking, they can really get ahead. The first tip to do that is to manage your energy. Given that introverts find interactions with people to be draining, On the days that I run a San Francisco 14 meeting, the first Tuesday of every month, it's automatically blocked off in my calendar. It is impossible to get a hold of me at the day that I run a San Francisco 14 meeting. Short of a fire drill, you cannot reach me. The meetings are usually large, very intensive, fast paced, and they drain all of my energy out of me. And I usually do not schedule client appointments or what's called troika, a 3-person meeting after a provisor's meeting, or any sort of human interaction of the sort after I run a San Francisco 14 meeting. The same thing applies, let's say before a troika. I schedule those in the afternoon so that the morning is reserved for the energy I need to do deep work concentration on my cases. If talking on the phone drains you, and just in my case, seeing the phone ring alarms me, I don't take phone calls right before I go into a client meeting. I don't take phone calls right before going into a networking social. Devorah Zach says that she, the author of Networking for People Who Hate Networking, she says that she was at a Mensa conference and she was sitting alone. And somebody came to her and said, "Is this how you network?" And her response was actually yes, because she was recharging her batteries and stepping away from the crowd to gather her strength and then go into the room, talk to people, and then step away strategically. This is where bathroom breaks come in, very useful for introverts. And so it's important that you intentionally manage your energy. Otherwise, if you have back-to-back networking meetings in a day, you'll be depleted and it won't be a good use of your energy. Tip number 2 is create strategic alliances with both extroverts and introverts. So when I became a group leader, I received a very good tip from my regional director, Ian. He said, you always choose a GLA, a group leader assistant, which is your right-hand person in your group improvisers. And he told me, choose someone whose personality is different than yours. Up until that point, I was so underconnected in improvisers that it took me a long time to think of who to choose as my GLA. I wasn't close enough to anyone in improvisers after having been in it for over 2 years to invite someone to become my GLA. So when he told me think of someone whose personality is different than yours, I invited Brittany Batorf because she was a section leader of the Bar Association of San Francisco, and I had loved her presence at a conference that she facilitated, and luckily she said yes. Since then, there are situations that my executive committee knows that I need their support with. And that is interviewing candidates for membership in San Francisco 14. They know that their job is to do the talking while I quietly judge. In the networking half hour between 7 to 7:30, every provisor's meeting is preceded by a half hour for informal networking. And my EC knows that that is the most excruciating part of being a group leader for me. When people come into the room and I have to greet them and engage in that most excruciating product of human civilization, small talk. So I delegate the small talk to my EC, the extroverts in my EC. I also have strategic alliances with introverts. So when I'm going to a social, I will make plans to go with a fellow introvert. That way, if I'm going to get cold feet, I have accountability, someone who's waiting for me to pick them up. And we show up a little bit late and we leave a little bit early, and we both understand and respect each other's boundaries around social interactions, and it works together to sync our energies. We have also alliances with extroverts when I go to socials. So I'll go with them, they'll do the talking, and I just follow them around and smile and spare myself the painful small talk. My third tip for you is embrace the spotlight. And this may be counterintuitive, But Zach, the author of Networking for People Hate Networking, says that when she was in college, she used to be a DJ, which may not appear as an ideal option for an introvert, but it puts the spotlight on her without engaging with other people. And that is a better use of her energy than perhaps being a bartender, where you do have to engage with people. Johnny Carson was an extreme introvert. He went for years without giving interviews, and he went home after the show rather than socialize. And this is an example of an introvert who made good use of the spotlight to elevate their profile, keep themselves top of mind in a networking context, and raise their profile. If you're still not convinced, I'm not sure if the audio will work, but this is a video from Oprah where she says that she is an introvert and she loves hiding out in the bathroom, and people don't believe it when she says that she's an introvert, but her energy is actually drained when she talks about when she wants her show and when she interacts with people. My fourth tip for you is generosity. And this is the most important one for both introverts and extroverts, actually. My guiding principle here is from my friend Matthew Cale, who says, when you shine light on others, it reflects on you. And this is great news for introverts because we are wired to prefer to put the attention on other people and deflect it off of ourselves. So this is a strength that we are well wired and prepared for. Early on in the pandemic, I heard about a company called Glucose Thrive. Every type 1 diabetic needs to carry on them at all times sugar and glucagon in case their blood sugar goes too low. If you're a frontline worker, that would be a hassle to carry it on your body. So Glucose Thrive it creates necklaces that have glucose gel, and it was sending them for free to type 1 diabetic frontline workers early on during COVID. When I heard about them, I was so touched by their generosity of supporting diabetic frontline workers that I purchased one and I wore it, and I recorded a video of myself inviting people to support Glucose Thrive, and I posted it on my LinkedIn. Once I stopped obsessing about how I would be perceived as a diabetic attorney, and once I put the focus on the frontline workers whose immunity is more compromised than non-diabetics, and once I started supporting this company that was going out of its way to support frontline workers, I relieved all my anxiety that I had about how I would be perceived, and I took it even a step further and became very public about it, and discovered to my delight that it actually did not impact my referability. My devices have gone off during consultations with potential new clients, and they've hired me anyway. And it turns out that making generosity the driving force in your networking is fundamental. In a provisor's context, you receive, as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, you receive testimonials when you give referrals at provisors meetings. And this is somewhere where I have really, my signature in provisors is that I give elaborate testimonials to people who give me referrals. And when I shine light on them, it reflects on me, it makes me look good. And when I give to others, I encourage them to talk about what I do, which is more memorable than if I were to talk about what I do as a business immigration lawyer. Another book that I recommend is mentioned that I'll get to in just a minute. It mentions that history was made by introvert extrovert pairs, like Watson and Crick, McCartney and Lennon, Jobs and Wozniak. According to Quiet by Susan Cain, the civil rights movement needed both MLK Jr.'s extroverted energy and Rosa Parks's introverted energy in order to succeed. When Rosa Parks passed away, her obituaries described her as having the courage of a lion, yet she was timid and shy. She had radical humility and quiet fortitude. So whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, networking is something that you can succeed and thrive at and bring your own unique energy to. Provisors is a great organization for extroverts, but it's also a great organization for introverts. Thank you.
Saja, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. We do have some time for questions for Saja. She is one of the best networkers that I know. So if you have any questions for her, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, she will give you some phenomenal answers. Saja, while people are coming up with their questions, you mentioned Provisors a lot. Can you give us just a quick 30-second overview of what that organization is?
It's a networking organization that's been around since the late 80s. It's approaching 10,000 members nationwide at the moment, and it's for senior level trusted advisors, attorneys, bankers, CPAs, wealth advisors, and coaches. And it's been especially growing during COVID. It's my what I've gotten, the referrals are only the surface of what I've gotten out of Provisors. It's been a phenomenal resource for my clients, and I've personally grown more than I can express right now.
Yeah, it's a fantastic organization. What's the best way if someone's interested to learn more about it? Because they don't, do a lot of advertising. They kind of fly under the radar.
They are an invite-only organization. My San Francisco 14's October 1st meeting is actually the most important one of the year. We are hosting as our keynote speaker, Robert Gillette, who gave me a testimonial back in 2019 that is part of the reason why I am still an immigration attorney today. And he'll be workshopping with us how to give great testimonials. So if you'd like to attend that meeting to get a feel for provisors, let me know. I'll link to my email in the chat.
Awesome. Fantastic. And Saja, if people want to reach out with you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
My LinkedIn, Saja Raoof, and my website is sar.law.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Saja. This was a phenomenal presentation. Really appreciate you coming forward and being frank, honest, and so inspiring to all of us. Thank
Thank you.
you.